Hi, everyone. My name is Lawrence. Welcome to this short webinar all about audio hardware and how you may use it for your hypnotherapy business. Now, many of you who may know me know that I tend to focus a lot of my interest on audio software and being able to create things on the computer. However, more recently, I've noticed that there's been an increased interest in mixers and units that can be used to record audio, as well as being used in session with clients. And that's great because it means that more people are embracing technology in order to be able to help more people out there. So massive thumbs up. Now, this is actually my third attempt, would you believe, at doing this webinar. The first, I started recording and I think it got a little bit too long. I felt myself almost slipping into a coma as I was editing it. The second, would you believe, talk about cursed, my audio didn't work properly. And that was a rookie mistake, but it goes to show that it can happen to anyone. So this is my third attempt. And in this third attempt, my aim is to keep it really to the point, which is probably not going so well given the waffle I just gave you right now, but that's okay. So really what my aim is for this webinar is for you to be able to get to the end of it and to have a better understanding of what all the components are that might make up a typical kind of mini studio setup. And I'll also want to explore the main scenarios that you might use them in. So for instance, if you're going to do home hypnosis audio recordings, what's potentially the best setup for that, or how do the setups work for that? I also want to look at in session with your clients. I want to look at podcasting. And also with that in session with clients, I might get a chance to have a quick look at online as well, because I've been asked a few times about that. Keep in mind that this is just my opinion, as my dear friend Clive Gurdon would say, it's just my thin slice of expertise that I'm offering today. There's lots of ways in which you can do this, but what I want to share with you is my own personal experience from years of playing with this stuff. And if you get to the end of this and I provide you with at least a couple of nuggets of insight that is going to help you to be able to make the best purchase, then I feel like this has been time well spent. So with that, let's jump into the first question that I always ask when people come and ask me for my advice on audio hardware. And that first question is simply this: what do you intend to do with it? And it might seem like a really random question, and you don't need to know the full answer to that yet, because obviously things might change over time. But if your intention is to create hypnosis audio recordings, then the setup that might be best for you there might be completely different to if you're hoping to do in-session mixers, for instance. And it might be different again if you plan to do podcasts. So having a bit of a clear idea about what it is what you want to use it for now, and even perhaps where you might want to go with it, is going to help you to determine that what you're spending your money on now is going to be something that you can use over a period of time, as opposed to spending money on something now and then finding that in a few years' time, you have to go and buy something else again. So this webinar is really about talking about what the ins and outs are, what the benefits, what the pros and cons are, and hoping that you are able then to be able to go and make an investment in something that is going to be really useful for you for years to come. So the first thing I'm going to look at now is the key main components that make up any form of home studio setup. Okay, so let's talk about microphones. Now, I hope you've got your cup of coffee and you're sitting comfortably, largely because this was the point last time where I think I began to send myself off into a bit of a coma. And the reason for that is because there is so much that you can say about microphones. So I've learned from that. I'm going to make sure I try to keep it as short and sweet as possible. Now, I know that a lot of people think microphones are all the same. And I guess that comes down to the fact that they all tend to do the same thing, which is to pick up sound. However, there's lots of different types of microphones, depending on what kind of sound you want to pick up. So, for instance, in the home recording space, the two main popular types are dynamic microphones and condenser microphones. Now, what's the difference between the two? Well, a dynamic microphone tends to localize the sound directly in front of it. And it can tend to be better with those louder, sharper hits. So, for instance, in a live band setup, the drummer would have their drum kit mic'd with dynamic microphones, whereas the vocalist would tend to record using a condenser microphone. And it's because it could tend to pick up some of the more subtle nuances of the voice more. Having said that, though, it tends to pick up background noise more. Now, in a home recording space, you would generally be working with a computer anyway, and you would generally then tend to apply some effects to clean up that vocal. However, it's something just to keep in mind there. Now, if you're planning to just do hypnosis audio recordings, then perhaps what you might want to look for is something like a home USB microphone. The one I've got here is the Blue Yeti, and this is probably the best-selling microphone in the home market space. And there's lots of reasons for that. It's a really high-quality build. I wouldn't want to get clomped over the head with this because it would bloody hurt. But it is a high-quality build. It's also got its own table stand, so it can sit quite easily in front of you. It has these 4 patterns on it. And what these patterns do is that you can adjust it depending on the environment that you're in. So one pattern is perfect if you just want to have the Blue Yeti in front of you and talking directly into it. However, another pattern is perfect if you want to do, say, a podcast or interview and have people sitting either side of it. So it's really useful for that side of things. Another feature of it is that if you look on the bottom, it has a headphone jack, which indicates that this can do live monitoring, and it has a volume for the headphone there as well. Now, you may wonder what the hell that is, and I'll come back to that afterwards, but it can be quite useful in a few different ways. Of course, the biggest feature of this microphone, and sadly my background is going to keep blurring it, so I'll just put it down here, is that it has a USB plug. It plugs into your computer via USB, which means you don't need anything else other than just the ability to plug this into your computer. And because it's basically something called plug and play, it means that your computer will be able to work with that straight away. No software, nothing else required. Of course, you'll need software to record with, like Audacity, but it doesn't need any software for it to work. These things are called drivers. So that's one of the advantages of that. There are other types of microphones out there that you can consider apart from the USB microphone. For instance, you might want to consider a lapel microphone. Now, I use one called a Rode SmartLab Plus that plugs directly into my smartphone. It has an app that I can use to record directly onto that, and it produces really beautiful quality. And I know a few other people that have wireless lapel microphones. Basically, they would have the lapel mic on them. They would have a receiver on the other end that would plug into another device to be received. And the quality of that is extraordinary. I did see someone recently claim that they don't use lapel mics because of extraneous but sounds, whatever. I don't agree with that. And the example I would give is that if you watch the evening news, for instance, those reporters will generally be wearing lapel microphones. And do you experience that problem there? No. So it really comes down to the quality of what you have. If you have a low quality product, then yeah, you probably aren't going to expect to have a low quality result. But if you are spending a little bit more to get a high quality product, then you shouldn't have those particular issues come up. The other thing to consider is that if it's not a USB microphone, then the microphones will generally need to be connected to something in order for that sound to be received. So for instance, some microphones will have what's called an XLR connection. Some will have a 6-inch jack, and they'll need to go into a mixer or an audio interface in order to be connected. We'll talk a little bit more about mixers and audio interfaces after, but that's something to keep in mind as well. If you go and buy a microphone that isn't a USB one off online, then you'll probably find that it needs to be connected using a cable of some sort, generally an XLR or a 6-inch cable there. Another thing you could consider is gamer or broadcast headsets. And these are generally headphones and microphone in one. I have one which is an Audio Technica one, and it's just bloody brilliant. I absolutely love it. The great thing about the Audio Technica broadcast headset, actually, there's a few things that I love about it. The first has really soft headset bits, so it feels really comfortable on the ears. If you're wearing it all day, then it's not going to cause you any discomfort. The cable on it is really long. You can move around the room and not be concerned about accidentally ripping your equipment off the desk or anything like that. The third thing that's really good about it is that it comes with an XLR connection, so I can plug it directly into my mixer or audio interface. So it's a really good investment. I think in Australia, they're roughly between $220 to $270. But they're great and they're broadcast quality, which makes it so much better. Another thing to keep in mind, and this is going to be relevant to our old friend here, the Blue Yeti. And even, the microphone I'm talking to at the moment is another blue one. It's a blue snowball and it has its own stand here, right? Now, I've trained myself over the years when I'm doing a video. I still move my hands a lot, but I've trained myself not to hit the table. And my feet are also tucked in under my seat so I don't accidentally kick the table. I can't begin to tell you how many people I've heard recordings from where, because they're not consciously thinking about it as they're doing their recording, they're accidentally hitting the table. So if you are the kind of person that might be a table hitter when you talk and you're not aware of it, then don't get table-bound microphones. What you might want to invest in is a microphone arm. And this would connect to your table, and you can connect your microphone to that, and then that can hang in the air directly in front of you. It's going to save a lot of time and hassle from you listening back to recordings and finding that there's all this vibration that's on your recording because you've been hitting the table accidentally. Some people have asked about wireless microphones before. Look, again, much like the wireless lapels, there's going to be some great quality ones out there. And you'd simply plug the receiver into your mixer or audio interface. But again, I'm going to keep coming back to the point of you get what you spend your money on. So if you're going to do that, don't go cheap. Make sure you get something that's a really decent quality, because that is going to last and it's going to give you far superior results. I think, looking at my notes, that I've managed to cover all of that without boring the crap out of people too much. And hopefully there's been a couple of insights there as well. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the audio interfaces and or the mixers. So let's have a chat about mixers. And I'm not talking about dry ginger or tonic water, although in much the same way that you have the glass that might contain the delicious gin and tonic and perhaps a slice of cucumber, the mixer is the device or the unit that will take all the different inputs, whether it be your microphone or your client's microphone or background music or whatever, and to be able to bring them all into one unit where you're going to be able to adjust the levels and to control the sound a bit more and to basically mix it, as the name suggests. And so these are really useful devices, particularly if you're planning to do sessions live with people as well. There's a few different types of mixers out there. So some are aimed more at the home musician. Some are aimed more at the streamer and online market nowadays. There's not too much difference between the two of them, just a few kind of features in how they work. However, we'll look a little bit more about them as we talk about them. Now, do you need one is a big question. And if you're planning to just do hypnosis audio recordings, the Blue Yeti or a similar high-quality USB microphone may be all you need. They essentially act as an audio interface. You can just plug it into the computer and off you go. However, if you're planning to do more than that, whether it be to be able to see people live and to create a hypnotic audio experience for them live in session, makes it sound like a concert, doesn't it? Then you will need some form of mixer. The other thing is that there are some people who are extremely technophobic and who don't want to use the computer, technology. And so the good thing about the mixers is that you don't need to connect it to a computer if you don't want. It can work as a standalone unit. And in fact, you can connect a digital audio recorder to it and just record directly to that. Now, I'm not a big advocate for that And I'll tell you why. If you're at least just recording your voice to the computer and you make a mistake, then it's really easy to edit out that mistake and to be able to just utilize what you've already created to get to a finished result. If you're using a mixer and you're mixing in music while you're doing it live, and you're adding effects while you're doing it live, and you make a mistake, it becomes increasingly more difficult and, dare I say, almost impossible to seamlessly edit that. You either have to live with the recording that has a mistake in it, or you need to start all over again. And so it can be really counterproductive. So while I know some people are really hesitant to go down that technology route, I would highly recommend it because the learning curve isn't as great as what you think. It's actually really quite easy. In fact, alongside this webinar, I will include a link to my free 1-hour webinar on Recording Basics 101. And if you watch that and try in earnest the things that I suggest in that, and you still can't do it, then at least we have our answer, don't we? The other thing to keep in mind is this. You're going to find that there are mixers available that are USB and one that is not USB. What's the difference? Well, a USB one can be connected to your computer or your smart device and work with that. Essentially, the analogy I often use is that if your microphone is the train on which your voice travels, then the mixer is the station in which the trains pull up. And then that will be connected to a computer to be able to communicate with that. That computer, that connection via USB forms another input as well as being the recording device. And so by having a USB mixer, if you do decide at some point that you want to expand and learn that technology side, you have all the equipment you need right there to be able to do it straight away. With the USB mixer as well, if you don't want to connect to a computer, you don't have to. You just get a USB adapter and you plug it into your mains and off you go. Simple. Whereas if you get a mixer that doesn't have USB compatibility, then you essentially are limited to how you can use that. It can only be a standalone device. So I highly recommend, regardless of if you are a fan of using a computer or not, go a USB mixer, because if you decide at some point you want to do that, you have the option to do that, as opposed to just, not. Didn't know how to end that sentence. One word seemed to sum it up nicely. Just one more thing on the USB mixers. I had someone ask me recently, don't they need software updates in order to be able to run? And the answer is generally no. As I mentioned before, there's audio interfaces. They're largely boxes that have a couple of plugs and a few dials on it. They're aimed more at that bedroom musician. And yes, they will need software or drivers to be able to work with the computer. And on top of that, they'll generally be updated quite frequently anyway. However, USB mixers, much like the microphones, are plug and play. They generally will not need any software in order to be able to run, and you can plug them straight into the computer, and it should be able to work fairly easily and seamlessly straight out of the box. So I think that I've covered that for the moment, and I'll be able to show you some mixers afterwards. I think the main key mixers that are in all the products that are out there at the moment, with the exception of the Hypnocom, I do have those mixers. So I can talk from a little bit of first-hand experience about what it's like to work with each of those to give you some insight there. But we'll get to there afterwards. The next video I'm going to talk about just quickly is all about headphones. So let's have a chat about headphones. Now, if I was to go into any hypnosis forum and to look at it from a audio hardware perspective, I would sometimes think that all hypnotherapists seem to care about is headphones. And I'm not sure why. While it's important to make sure you have good quality headphones, I certainly believe that having a good quality microphone and a good quality mixer or audio interface is far more important than having top-notch headphones. Now, it's important, though, to have decent headphones, and I'll explain the reasons why. So if you are perhaps doing just hypnosis audio recordings, then it's really important to be able to mix that audio with headphones on. Too many times I've seen people mix hypnosis audios just through their computer speakers, and then when they listen to it back through headphones, the backing music or the binaural beat has just been a touch too loud, and they've had to go back and redo it. And that's a bit of a pain, isn't it? You don't want to necessarily have your time wasted. If you're planning to do in-session hypnotic audio experiences, I think we need a better name for that. I just keep rattling off a whole lot of words, but I know you know what I mean. Then having headphones there is vital, or else how else are they going to be able to hear that hypnotic experience? And not only that, I think it's important to make sure that the headphones are comfortable, because you're going to be wearing them all day. You don't want your client to feel any discomfort that might prevent them from being able to relax in the session. You want to make sure the cables are long. The last thing you want to do is feel like you're pulling your equipment off the desk as you go to do a hand drop and an element induction. You want to make sure that you're going to be able to move freely and that the cable has that length to facilitate that. Thirdly, you're going to want to make sure that it's compatible with whatever device you're using to make sure that the plugs work properly. Some mixers only have a 3.5 millimeter jack, and most headphones might come with a 6-inch jack. So either you're going to need a 3.5 to 6-inch converter, which are available, but they're not as commonly found, or to get a little headphone mixer that you can then use, particularly if the mixer only has one headphone jack. We'll get to that afterwards. Another thing to keep in mind is that there are some headphones that are designed to be listened to music with, and they're generally designed by artists like Dr. Dre to enhance that style of music. So Dr. Dre is a hip-hop artist, therefore those headphones are generally going to have more of a bass boost in order to benefit that style of music. Whereas another type of microphone is studio headphones, and they are designed to just give you an honest, true reflection of the sound that you're hearing. They're not tainting in any way. They're just offering you a real reflection of that sound. Now, my personal preference is always to go with studio monitors, only because if you're using like a Dr. Dre style one and you're mixing audio that you're going to send to someone else, it's going to taint the mix. So you're better off making sure that you have those studio monitor ones to give you just a simple, honest reflection. Oh, man, I'm talking a lot, aren't I? So I think with that, I'm going to wrap up headphones for the moment, and we're going to move next into the sessions where I'm going to talk a little bit about those different scenarios, the recording hypnosis audio, the mixer that you use in session with clients and potentially Zoom as well, and also podcasting. And I'll talk about the various different equipment I had and what the pros and cons have been there. Hopefully by the end of that, it's giving you some more insight into this wide, exciting world of audio. Do you sometimes feel like you just run out of things to say at the end of a sentence? Yeah, exactly. Let's just move into the next video. Okay, so now you know a bit about the key components. We're up to the part where we want to talk about the various different scenarios and determine what is the equipment that is best going to serve you. So with that in mind, the best way I thought to do this was that I've done some tests outside of this video. I did originally intend to include them, but it made it so long and quite tedious, to be honest. So what I thought I'd do is just give you what my observations were, and I can put links to the individual equipment in a PDF around this as well, so you can download that if you wish. Now, let's have a look here. The first thing I'm going to use is a trusty old faithful USB microphone. It doesn't have to be a Blue Yeti. There's lots of really good USB microphones out there, but obviously you want to get one that has got some good reviews there that really support it. The second thing we're going to look at is mixers, and I can assure you I have mixers and I have mixers and I have mixers and I have mixers. So which mixers am I going to use for this test? Well, I decided on 3. And the 3 I chose are largely because they're ones that either I've spoken about before or are largely in the products that are out there at the moment. The first is a Behringer 302 USB. This is Behringer Xenex, I should say, 302 USB. The second is a Sound Blaster K3. And the third one is, it's a generic one. There's a few different, it's been rebadged a few times for a few different things, but it's basically these generic ones. Let me open up the box. You can get these from eBay for, well, I got this one for less than $50 Australian delivered. I'm trying to get out the box. I'm the worst unboxing video ever, aren't I? So they basically look like this, and they're pretty much rebadged across a few different brands, but they're essentially the same board. They look exactly the same. So with that, for my microphone for these tests, I have used my Audio Technica BPHS1. This is a broadcast headset. It's a thing of beauty. I love wearing it, and it's got a great microphone on it. So now that I've explained the equipment that I'll use and the links around this video, no affiliate links, they're all going to be direct. Let's talk about the various scenarios and what I think are the easiest ways across a couple of different scenarios, as well as what I found the pros and cons to be. Okay, so the first one is recording hypnosis audio, or for that matter, recording any content where it's just you speaking to an audience. Now, I'm biased, of course. This is just my opinion, but I still think the easiest way to do that is getting a decent quality USB microphone, plugging it into your computer, and then using free software like Audacity to be able to do your recordings. And you can also then add effects, edit it, clean it up, add background music, add binaural beats, all those sort of things, and you have full control. Why would you use a mixer to record hypnosis audio? Well, there's a couple of reasons. The first one I can think of is that you don't like working with computers, in which case the learning curve on some of this is probably going to be a bit steep for you anyway. But, you know, I can understand that some people prefer to connect a digital audio recorder to the outputs of these mixers and just to be able to create straight from there. Absolutely fine. The other reason might be that you're planning to use your mixer in a live setting with clients, and the majority of USB microphones are not going to work with the mixers because the mixers don't have USB plugs. The majority of these mixers are going to have XLR or 6-inch plugs. So you're going to need microphones that are compatible with that. And in short, why would you buy a USB microphone if you've got equipment that is not aligned with it? That doesn't make any sense. What I have found from using the mixers is that they're all relatively fairly good. I would say the best sound quality by far came from the Creative Sound Blaster K3 Plus. Now, Creative as a brand are synonymous with home computers. In fact, my computer that I'm recording on right now has a Sound Blaster sound card in it that is a studio quality. And these are great devices. These are aimed, as I said, at the streamer market. So they're meant to be portable. They're meant to be able to be used anywhere. And they've got a couple of different inputs. So it makes it really useful if you're planning to do podcasts, but we'll get to that point. But on the whole, the sound quality on this is fantastic. I think it's better than the other two in the sense that there isn't as much background noise that comes from the unit itself. Second to that, it's kind of a tie, to be honest with you. I will say that the Behringer, these retail for around 100 Australian dollars. It did an okay job. It's okay. With a good quality microphone, it did an okay job. Behringer is known for being kind of cheap and cheerful. Certainly most serious musicians probably wouldn't use Behringer as a brand normally because they are on that cheaper side. However, it did produce a decent recording with my broadcast headset and relatively low noise. And what's good about the Behringer one is that it does have a little bit of a graphic equalizer there as well, so that I can increase the bass or reduce my treble. It doesn't have any other effects on it, though. What it can do, though, which is awesome, is that it does have a USB connection, and I can play music from my computer into the Behringer while I also do my live hypnosis and record back to that same computer. So that's useful. Lastly, we go to the more generic one. You know what? This would have almost won, except I found that for some strange reason, it didn't like my headset so much. The signal that I got from my microphone was really low, and I had my volume turned up full. I had the gain on full to try to get the highest level I can, and it just wasn't recording high enough. So when I unplugged that headset and moved to my Focusrite XLR microphone, it fixed it then. The sound was better then. So yeah, I was a bit concerned about that sometimes some microphones may work better with this than others. It does have built-in effects, but I have to be honest, those effects are not fantastic. I found them to be a bit cheap, to be honest. What I do like about this is that it does have a built-in USB port where you can play your hypnotherapy music. So if you wanted just this unit in your clinic room, you could easily get away with not having this connected to anything else. So that was kind of a plus there. So, but in terms of, because I'm getting sidetracked here, in terms of the Hypnosis audio recording, look, you would need to check your microphones, but it did a fairly clean recording from that. So all up, I'd say number one choice, USB microphone. If I had to use a mixer, I'd probably spend a little bit more and get the Creative Sound Blaster K3 Plus. Hopefully that helped clear that up. Let's move into the next scenario, which is going to be the Hypnotherapy Mixer setting. So let's have a chat about the Hypnotherapy Mixer. I wish I had a better name to call this thing. I've been wondering what to call it for years. Now, this is essentially a situation where you have a mixer in the room with you. Your client has on headphones. You're going to be able to deliver them the complete auditory experience. There's going to be background music and perhaps binaural beats, and you're going to be able to talk over the top of that. And it's just going to help make it such a different experience for your client. The other benefit of doing this sort of setup is that, you know, if you have a client that likes forest, you can have forest background sounds. If you have a client that likes the beach, you can have sounds of waves. If you wanted to do something like a dual channel hypnosis confusion recording, you can have these backing tracks there ready to go to run through your mixer, just even adding a different layer again. So let's have a chat again about the same 4 bits of equipment and how they stack up in this setting. So the first is the USB microphone. Now you're probably thinking, you're not going to be able to use that as a hypnotherapy mixer. Well, actually you're wrong. You can. Before I mentioned live monitoring, and this is essentially where the microphone is going to be able to let you hear things live. You may not realize this, but the microphone almost acts as its own audio interface. And it does that because it has the headphone jack in the bottom. If you were to get a cable and plug it in one end into the headphone jack there and the other end into something like this, which is a headphone mixer, then you could potentially use the Blue Yeti in the hypnotherapy mixer setting. It has its limitations, which I'll talk about shortly, but you can do it. This little mixer, you have inputs there, so you would plug your 3.5-inch other end into there, and then it has up to 4 headphones that you could connect to this device with individual volume controls. So it's actually a really useful little bit of equipment, and these roughly are around $50. It would mean, though, that your microphone would be desk-bound. It would have to be there in front of you. So if you were planning to get up and to move over to your client and to do a hand drop or anything like that. You're going to be racing to and from, talking to the microphone, racing back and everything. How it would work is that you would connect your USB microphone to the computer, and then with a program like Audacity, you would tell that you would want the microphone to be the Blue Yeti, and that you'd want it to go back through the Blue Yeti as well. Then you would plug your headphones in, and using the headphone dial on this, you would adjust that. You'd possibly turn it up to full and then adjust the actual volumes of each individual one by this. So a little bit extra work, but you can actually do it. Would I recommend it? Probably not. To be honest, I think it's a bit fiddly given that there are easier options. What are these easier options? Okay, well, let's first rule out the ones I wouldn't use. Despite the fact that I had created a video a couple of years ago talking about how to turn this into a hypnotherapy mixer, I wouldn't use this nowadays. Technology has evolved and there are far better options out there. So I'd probably rule this one out. There we go. That was quick and easy. Next, Sound Blaster K3 Plus. This has its advantages. And the advantages are it has 2 microphones and 2 headphones with individual headphone control built into it. Out of all the mixers I'm showing you, it's the only one that has 2 headphones already there, ready to go. What I think is the challenge with this, or the only negative that I've come across, is that if you were to connect this to your computer and have the music playing from your computer back into this, you'd have to adjust the volume of that track on the computer. You can't adjust it via here. The only exception to that is if you were to connect an iPad or a music player in via the line in, and then it has a knob that would adjust it. I find it bizarre that it doesn't allow me to adjust the USB, but that's the only negative I have about this, the only negative. The third option is the $50 mixer. And to be honest, where this does have a benefit is that it does have that USB port where you can just play music directly from that. You don't need this connected to a computer if you didn't want to. Having said that, it only has one headphone out, which is a 3.5 millimeter jack there. So you would need that headphone mixer in order to be able to have both you and your client hearing things. So you would need to buy something extra in order to do that. So of the 3, again, not focusing on budget, I would easily go the Sound Blaster K3 because it doesn't need anything else and it's set up to be able to be streaming across a couple of people. So there we go. There's that option. Oh, but I did say I was going to talk about Zoom. You know what? The key thing with Zoom is this. While you might be able to have great internet on your side, the thing you can't control is the internet quality of the person on the other side. And if it isn't good, then no matter what you do, it's going to sound crap to them. So I'm always very hesitant to recommend to people to do too many bells and whistles with audio on Zoom. There are videos out there from professional musicians who teach via Zoom about how to optimize the setup within Zoom on their settings to be able to get the best sound. My honest recommendation is that if you're planning to do this, then you're going to want to have just a trial with your client first. Just so before we go into the session, do you mind if I just play some audio quickly to you and just speak over the top to make sure that it's sounding fine? And if it's not, then drop the audio out. Seriously, just drop it. But if it sounds good, then by all means proceed. Awesome. Will using something like this improve it? Yes, because you can potentially add your effects to your voice, and then you would select the K3 or whatever mixer that you have as being the input for your microphone on Zoom. You know what? If you're doing sessions and you're just relying upon your camera's microphone, then even a USB microphone is going to improve the sound quality of your sessions enormously. So there are things to consider there. Lastly, let's move on to podcasting. So podcasting, you want to do a podcast. I love doing podcasts. I think they're fun. It gives me a great opportunity to be able to network with people within the industry and to pick their brains and to, it's like a private masterclass with people, which I really enjoy. Now, let's have a look at these items again and see what's the best when it comes to podcasting. The obvious first question is, how are you going to do podcasting? Particularly, we've been going through a pandemic, and so meeting people face-to-face isn't always an option. Most of my podcasts I've been doing, I have been doing online using Zoom, in fact, and just using a good quality USB microphone to be able to record my side. You can't always control their side. Sometimes they're going to sound a bit crap. What I do though, when it comes to doing podcasts, is that I've changed the settings within Zoom, so that when I finish recording, it's going to give me two individual audio streams, one for me and one for the other person. And then I can put that into Audacity and clean that all up and get the levels sounding better before putting that audio out there if I want to. So that's a bit of a tip there. If you are doing podcasts with the person there with you, then let's look firstly at the Blue Yeti. As I mentioned before, it has a setting on it, which is this last one here. I don't know if the camera will get it. It looks like a little figure 8. No, it's going to blur on me. It's going to be really annoying, isn't it? Right. We'll put a picture up. There we go. That's better. The figure 8. Great. Excellent. That figure 8 means that people can sit on either side of the Yeti and it will pick up both sides. Is it the absolute best? Probably not. I don't ever advocate having just one microphone for both people. Inevitably, you're going to hear that distance of them being away from it, and everyone's going to have their different volumes in which they speak and all that sort of thing, and it's still recording down to one track. So in terms of podcasting in person, Blue Yeti probably not the best option. I think you need to be sitting really close to it in order to, for both of you to do that. And in this post-COVID world, that's probably not a good thing. Let's have a look at the Sound Blaster K3. Well, to be honest, that's what this has been built for in some ways. It is aimed at the streaming market, and it's aimed at portability. You can take this anywhere and pretty much plug it in, off it goes. It has room for 2 microphones, so you can have yourself and one guest. As I mentioned, it's got the 2 headphones, so you can have your individual things there. You can control the input individually as well. So it's actually a pretty cool unit, very practical. I should add that there are other mixers out there that are aimed more exclusively at the podcasting market, and they have multiple channels, so 4 or 5 people if you want, and onboard effects there as well. I will add, though, Sound Blaster has built-in sound effects, but they're not really usable from a hypnotherapy perspective, unless you're planning to shoot people or have babies in your session. That's a different story, isn't it? Sounds like there's a story there. Let's go to the Behringer. No, I wouldn't use this for podcasts. It only has room for 1 mic. It's actually, you know what? Take that back a little bit. You can plug in a headset here. It's got a 3.5 millimeter jack for both microphone and headphone there. So that could be useful perhaps for online. However, in terms of in-person, no, it's not really practical. You can buy next models up that would have a couple of different microphone inputs, but this particular model, no. Lastly, our generic one here. Look, it has 2 microphone spots, so that's awesome. Individual levels for each. You can bring in a 3rd USB and you can play music through that if you want as well. I think the biggest challenge with this was, from what I discovered using my headset, the microphone didn't necessarily work as well with it. And so you just need to be mindful of the microphone there. But apart from that, look, for $50, it's not bad. Again, probably the winner for me out of these is going to be the Sound Blaster K3 Plus. So hopefully it gives you a bit of an overview here about what each of these elements are and what their pros and cons are and what to perhaps look out for. As I said, I'll put links down around this video, and I'll create a PDF with all the links in it and a bit more content and information that may help you if you're considering looking at these things. However, the first question is going to be, what is it that you want to do with it? If you're not sure and you're thinking in the future that there might be a podcast or there might be, in-session uses, then consider a mixer and more advanced. If not, then you can look at something as simple as a USB microphone. And of course, perhaps consider my course. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me on Lawrence, that's LAWRENCE at releasehypnosis.com.au. I'm wishing you all the best. Go out, have fun recording, explore, play. It's creative and it's meaningful. And I'll speak to you soon.